What is the difference between a 4th generation, 4.5 generation, 5th and 6th?
Ball of the ballpoint pen is just manufactured by 3 countries. It is such a fine thing that not all countries can manufacture. A system that has been running for decades will not change in 1 to 2 or 4 years, because every country has its own
national interest. So typically, does Russian aircraft take more payload as compared to the Europeans?
For last 10-11 years, the Chinese and the Pakistani Air Force are flying JF-17s together, and same tactics, same platform, same capabilities, and they have a common enemy. Flying is nothing but managing 4 forces in air. That is lift, drag, weight and thrust.
What is the typical preparation for a flying officer that he has to go for a sortie? What is the typical preparation, whatever you can share?
After when you come to Air Force Academy, you have to study 18 subjects. Now that is not known to very many people. It is very, very tough.
When it particularly comes to flying a fighter aircraft, is a woman's body more better equipped than a man's body, or is it similar? What is the update as far as AMCA is concerned? Where are we as of now? That Pakistan Air Force is just as professional as Indian Air Force. Is it actually the case?
They are a professional Air Force.
And what do you have to say about the Chinese Air Force? Hello friends, my name is Chitresh Kapoor and welcome to Defensive Offence English, your go-to podcast for discussions around national security and geopolitics and geostrategy. And we look at global developments from the Indian context and how it's going to impact India both in the short run and the long run. Before we get started, I would request you to subscribe to our channel and hit the like button. This way we would be able to help you with the best possible content and we would also know the kind of content that you're looking for. Today we have Air Marshal Sanjeev Kapoor sir, retired from the Indian Air Force last year and almost 8,000 plus hours of flying experience. So welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you.
I like to ask you a few questions regarding Indian Air Force, and particularly in the last 10 years, we have seen there's a lot of modernization and there's a lot of coordination between Indian Air Force and Indian Army. So what are your thoughts on it? How do you see it moving forward? And do you think it's the right direction? What are the things that we need to do in order to take it to the next level, sir?
See, the integration of the services begin with our training at NDA. Generally, your own course mates with whom you have gone through thick and thin join the other 2 services, Army and the Navy and the Air Force. And most of us remain in touch as we grow. And somewhere in between, at every seniority level, say a major or a lieutenant colonel level, you go through 1 year's staff college course, wherein again you train together, you are taught war fighting, you're taught about the other 2 services. Then from there you reach colonel level, and then you again go through something is called as a higher command course. There are 3 of them, one conducted by the Army, one by the Navy, one by the Air Force. And there's a separate course called HDMC, Higher Defense Management. This is conducted for tri-services, and all 4 of these courses are tri-service. Thereafter, at brigadier level, you again go through a training together, and that's called the National Defense College, NDC. This is again 1 year course. So why I'm giving these examples is that from 18-year-old to about 50-year-old, all along in the journey, at every stage, you have professionally interacted with the other 2 services, with whom you began your journey as a teenager. Now, these things are taught to you, you see them, and of late, in last 10 years, like you pointed out, there has been a lot of stress on cross postings. So now in our headquarters of all the 3 services, you find the uniform of the other 2 services regularly posted, seated on the desk to handle the work of that service, but by the other uniform day. Now there are a lot of joint exercises between the Army and the Air Force, the joint exercises with the Navy, there are tri-service exercises. With headquarter IDS coming, there are a lot of tri-service exercises which are conducted with the foreign air forces. There are a lot of international exercises which have really ticked off, though it's a part of diplomacy also. Defense is a part of diplomacy.
Absolutely.
So if I recall, in the last 12 months, Indian Air Force has engaged with at least 10 to 12 foreign countries individually in exercises. And we held the biggest air exercise now a few months ago in India, wherein about 14 countries, foreign air forces participate. And Army is also involved in most of these exercises in some form or the other So that is the integration we are talking.
So I would also like to understand, there are a lot of people talking about theater command systems. For a normal person who's not coming from the armed forces background, I would like to understand from you what is a theater command system, and particularly when we talk about Indian Air Force, how does theater command system work? So if you could just throw some light on it, that would be great, sir.
See, theater command is a concept which actually started from the West. The resources of all the three services are put under one commander. And he decided that on his front, geographical front, if he has to defend or fight, how would he like to deploy those resources? Typically without having to ask the other two service headquarters. This is the broad concepts of theater. And invariably, mostly they are drawn out on geographical basis.
Okay.
It's north, central, east. Like the US has a Pacific Command, Central Command. They have a lot of this thing. China also restructured their armed forces a few years ago into theaters. So they carved out theaters of their own structure. So theaterization has lots of pluses and a few limitations, I'll put it. Now, especially coming to the Indian Air Force has accepted the broad concept of theaterization, but has a very serious limitation as far as the resources go. As you are aware that we have finite resources. And the best part of the air power is that we can deploy within no time. The mobility and this thing is in minutes. So an asset geographically cannot be bound at a particular place. If it is required on the eastern front, it can move there. If it is required on the northern front, it can move there. This asset can, if required, can move to the west. So typically the modern assets are interoperable between places geographically. Certain things, of course, like air defense, your missiles, your radars, this thing, could be stationed in a particular theater to do this thing. But typically combat assets and other associated things could be processed. So this is broadly where...
So does the theater command also involve other services working together?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
That's what the first example I gave you, that in all the tri-services exercises and all...
They're all working jointly together.
And I told you that we grow up together for last 30, 40 years, meeting each other, working, doing courses, exercises, cross postings. So this is a step to integrate the three services.
What are the benefits of a theater command system?
See, I told you in the beginning, the complete assets and the reserve of warfighting capability is given charge under one commander. It could be from any service. The assets are under one guy. He has the flexibility with the help of the other two services commanders who are posted with him to give him professional advice. And he on the spot takes the decision. So this is to basically cut down on decision making from higher formation, one. Secondly, requisitioning the support from the other two services. So that is the broad concept of.
So typically a theater command system would have how many people at an officer level? Is there a specific number in place?
No, it is not. It is as per requirement and role.
Okay.
So it's like a command headquarters. Every service has commands. So it would be typically of that size and shape.
Okay. And sir, if for a very long time we've been hearing that 42 squadron strength should be our optimal. What is the history? What is the background to it? And now with the drone warfare coming up, we are actually also acquiring drones. Does it still have relevance? But with now 2.5 front war, while a lot of people do talk about, what is your light on that 42 squadrons?
See, these 42 squadrons analysis was done. We call it appreciation in the armed forces. So at that stage, after the war, 71 war, somewhere around 80s, this was decided that to fight, we need 42 squads. However, what has happened is over a period of time, the country has not been able to produce aircrafts of its own at the rate at which it was envisaged about 20 years ago.
Right.
But on the other hand, the life of the existing platforms at that stage is finishing. Say MiG-21, MiG-23, MiG-25, 7, MiG-20. So these platforms have slowly started to phase out, thereby reducing the squadrons. So today we have 30 to 31 squadrons left. But what has happened in the meanwhile, we have acquired modern aircrafts.
Right.
So a Su-30 squadron, which is the backbone of fighter flying in IAF today, is equivalent to 3 roughly MiG-21s. So what happens is that the ability to carry weapons, its potent force, its range, its capabilities are 2 to 3 times that of a
MiG-21.
gunman. Yeah. So though typically the numbers may have reduced, but the fighting ability has not diminished. So now with what has happened is with Atmanirbhar and other things, there's a big push which is coming to our local industry. You would have seen last month that India has started the production line for C295s. It's a step in the right direction, wherein the Airbus, which had taken over the CASA company, the Spanish company, has gone in an agreement with the Tata Aerospace.
Okay.
And Air Force buying 56 replacement for Avro aircrafts. Avro aircrafts are transport aircrafts. So 16 of them would be coming in flyaway condition. 6 to 7 have already arrived.
Okay.
The rest 40 would be assembled and manufactured in India. Now I'll come to the best part. The best part is the transfer of technology so says that 48% would be the initial indigenous components.
Okay.
So 37 to 38 companies are already producing components for the C295.
Okay.
The MSM is based out of Hyderabad, in and around southern India and Gujarat are already manufacturing, and this figure is likely to go up. And in another 8 to 10 years, the indigenous component will go to about 78%. So what happens with this is that tomorrow, in case of any war or in case of any crisis or in case of any calamity, we are not dependent on any foreign country to provide us with spares, rotables, help. Because our own country and our own agencies are producing those things which are needed for our Air Force.
Right.
Similar concept India is now looking at to get the additional 114 fighters which we are getting. Like Rafale, we got
right,
2 squadrons.
Right.
So Rafale capability is one of the finest 4.5 generation fighter aircraft we have in the world. So similar quality aeroplanes would now, if India gives a big order, would be manufactured here. Of course, India is pushing ahead for the LCA Mark IIs, AMCAs and other things. But it's not as worrying as it is being portrayed.
Sir, for the benefit of users once again, if you could just give small or whatever it is possible, we would not push you for anything that you're not allowed to share. What is the difference between a 4th generation, 4.5 generation, 5th and 6th? Although 6th, China has very recently, earlier this month,
basically, these are capabilities the West defined as per the aircraft capability, subsonic, supersonic, this thing. The roles which it can do. So the higher the figure which is coming is basically attributable to something called as stealth. Stealth is basically you do not want any radar cross section of that aeroplane.
Right.
So when the aeroplane is flying in the air, the radars should not be able to pick up any of the emissions, be it heat emission, be it sound, be it radar, be it sonic, any kind of emission. So the design of the aeroplane is so made that you see F-22s, F-35s, all these aeroplanes. They are designed in a manner that everything is embedded in the aerofoil. Now, if you are reading news 2 days ago, I read that Israel is buying 25 F-15s off the shelf, which are about 50 years old technology. Why are they buying? The question is, when they have used F-35 and F-22 in the recent conflict, why are they buying F-15? So they are buying F-15s because in F-15s, you can externally load. It can carry about 30,000 pounds of weapons.
Right.
It can carry missiles. Now, these things are not possible in a stealth aeroplane because you cannot load anything externally. Stealth.
Okay. So how do you decide when you have to take a stealth plane versus others?
It is all dependent on the role.
Right, sir.
That machine has to be used for what purpose?
Right.
So now I was coming to that. Israel now feels that in a situation where they have air superiority or favorable air situation in a pocket over Lebanon or over Iran, some passage wherever they want to go and strike, why would they like to carry a stealth aircraft? Because they know that for that particular period, they have jammed the radars, they have taken out the air defenses by punitive strikes. That passage is clear for them for next, say, half an hour or 1 hour before the enemy again regroups or the other forces start to. So what in this period, they like to push a package with maximum weapons. So at this stage, to carry a stealth aircraft is not advised because it has a limited
payload capacity.
So at that stage, they will use, say, a platform like F-15.
Right.
So this is so it depends. But when you're going for the first time into enemy territory, you'll not take an F-15 because it doesn't hide itself in that manner.
So, but is there anything called stealth these days? A lot of people do talk about that there is no such thing as stealth.
But it is getting it as close to as possible.
We are actually buying a lot of aircrafts from different countries, predominantly Sukhoi, as we all know, since a lot of our aircrafts are from Russia. And now we have Apache, we have Globemaster, we are taking Chinook. So do you think buying it from different sources, does it really make sense? Because our S-400 is all Russian while we're buying aircrafts from other places, or we do not have choice at this point of time?
I have covered it in a lot of podcasts.
Yes, sir.
In your channel also, the other day I was covering with Vaibhav the same thing. In all the technologies which the West did not give us, Indians, when we were coming up, be it space, be it missiles, be it nuclear, be it other things, we have made ourselves self-reliant, and
we had no choice.
We had no choice.
We had no choice.
But the word, big companies want unrest everywhere. So they are willing to give you weapons as much, and aircrafts, tanks, guns, artillery, as much as you want, anytime you want. So we never had to actually ask for anything. They were more than willing to give us. So somewhere, in my opinion, our defense infrastructure did not take off. India is one of the largest importers of arms.
Absolutely.
So it is now that we have realized that in case of crisis, now you see, I'll give you a simple example of the Russian-Ukraine war which is happening. Ukraine is totally dependent on the NATO West for arms, and it is using it extensively. Now what has happened is, initially everything was fine, but now I was reading that they are running out of ammunition, be it for the tanks, be it for their artillery guns, be it for the aeroplanes, be it other weapons. Whereas on the other hand, Russia, after 2014, when they annexed Crimea, when they went into Syria, when they went into other conflict zones, started to realize that we have to be back at our old days of USSR days of Cold War. So their defense industry really picked up. So today, anything which the Russian armed forces need is not imported.
They don't need.
They don't need.
So
tomorrow, if we have to fight, and that's what the example I was giving you for C295, that until we start manufacturing our own components, our own airframes, our own engines, our own missiles, rockets, guns, everything, we would be still subject to blackmail or to say arm twisting or artificial scarcity or non-availability.
We are being arm twisted for Tejas.
So now you would have read like G engines 404,
110 odd, maybe a little more.
So our LCA Mark 1, 1As are delayed because of 404. 414s were to come for LCA Mark
even though the payments have already been made.
And AMCA. So they are not coming. So Indian government is putting pressure on G through American government. Wherein in 2023, when the Prime Minister had gone, the agreement was signed. So all these kind of things happen. And to avoid all this, the only solution is that we have to be self-reliant.
So how much time do you think we have to build an engine? So for example, if people start planning it now, 20 years, 10 years, how much time? Or maybe more?
Again cover at a lot of places. We will need time. The finest technology, the finest metallurgy, the finest carburetors, like engines, it is rotating at 12,000 rotations per minute at 1,000 or 1,200 degrees centigrade. You need a metal which can withstand that stress and yet produce thrust and does not deform or any way, reduce your capability. Now that kind of a metallurgy, or I gave an example the other day that the ball of the ballpoint pen is just manufactured by 3 countries. It is such a fine thing that not all countries can manufacture. It is imported. So we will have to rely for many years, in my opinion, say 10 plus years, even if we begin today, to get this niche capability in-house. Because it is not only the components which we are making, it is the high-end metallurgy, high-end electronics, high-end radar, high-end computing, and all these things which we will still have to wait to develop in-house.
Okay. And do you think with Trump coming to power, the delivery of engines, if we were to crystal gaze, will that be
ever since
better?
he won and the results came on 5th November, there's a lot of euphoria in a lot of quarters and a lot of people are not so happy. I'm not very sure how things will unfold after he takes over on 20th Jan next year. He has a soft corner for India. He wants India to grow.
He's a very transactional president. Yes.
I don't expect too many changes.
Okay.
I don't expect, right? Things may happen towards Russia-Ukraine war. Things may happen towards Israel-Hamas war, Iran war. Things may happen towards other issues. But drastic changes, I don't expect. Because a system that has been running for decades will not change in 1 to 2 or 4 years. Because every country has its own
national interest.
And like I was covering that even these fighters or these advanced airplanes, all these advanced air forces make 2 versions.
One for themselves, one for...
One. So one they export and one they keep for themselves. So a cat will not teach a tiger how to climb a tree. So some things they keep with themselves. So everything is not transferred. So like that, anything which you ask any of these countries, they'll give you 2 years, 3 years, 4 years old technology, but may not share with you the latest. That's what I feel.
Sir, we've been hearing a lot about S-400 and they are delayed because of the war. So there is something that we cannot do anything over there. So that would be point number 1. My point number 2, which is more important, both China and Pakistan have to a certain extent already trained. And George Fernandez way back in 97-98 did say in the parliament that China is our enemy number 1. Do you think it was the right decision in hindsight to go for S-400?
Yes, why not? See, what has happened today is that the Chinese and the Pakistanis are more and more sharing the same inventory. So if you follow APAR, there have been 11 Shaheen exercises, 10 have. So for last 10, 11 years, the Chinese and the Pakistani Air Force are flying JF-17s together, and same tactics, same platform, same capabilities, and they're training together. They have a common enemy. So what choices do we have? Like we signed with GE this contract for 404, it will not come.
Got delayed.
So we don't have this capability to manufacture in-house. I told you things which we didn't get any help, we developed. Things we were given on a platter, we didn't develop. Now, whatever is available to defend our infrastructure, countries, assets, we are getting from wherever we are getting. Till we develop our own. And this process is on. The biggest challenge for us is, like you asked in the beginning, is the varied inventory which we have, be it of platforms, be it of systems, be it of radars, be it of this thing. The integration is very, very essential. And I gave the example in the last podcast also, that say when we bought the air-to-air refuelers, so the pod which we bought IL-78, so the pod which we bought, initially, which we were planning to buy with the platform, was called UPAZ, 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 Russian this thing. But we have Su-30s, which is Russian, but we have Mirage 2000 at that stage and
Now
Jaguars about 20 years ago, which we had to refuel. Now that we were not sure would be compatible with UPAZ. So we needed, and we couldn't have used different type of pods for refueling. So we went into Israel. So Israel manufactured and gave us a pod, which we use now in India, which is both compatible with Russian fleet.
All right.
And so I've just given you one example wherein we modify the existing thing to make it compatible with whatever assets we have.
Okay. So if we were to particularly talk about S-400, typically, how does it operate? I mean, is there that it detects X kilometers before?
Yes.
How does it detect? And how different is it from the Iron Dome and the US defense system? So how different is it?
See, the S-400 is a Russian
Yes, sir.
thing. It is primarily having a detection radar which is placed, and it has your missiles which are linked. It is both through in advanced versions through your own airborne platforms or through ground relay. It's in real time. And then the target is picked up through our integrated communication channels. And it is transmitted to this battery, which is movable, of course. And then it locks on and it has. And similar concept does exist for Iron Dome and other things. The broad concept is the same.
Right.
Only thing is the capabilities are a wee bit different. The pickup ranges in certain cases are a little different. The range of the weapons is a little different. Like yesterday, if you were following, the Russians launched an ICBM over Ukraine.
Yes.
So the difference between a ballistic missile and a cruise missile, ballistic missile is just guided in certain portion. Thereafter, it follows the gravitational and re-enters the atmosphere and everything. Whereas the cruise missile is very difficult to detect. It follows a path, straight line, and it goes at a particular speed, height, which is programmable. So it's difficult. So which weapon to use where for what role? So similarly as in the air defense, which thing to be deployed where for what role?
So is our aspiration number is 4 S-400s. Do you think it's enough? We have such a big
No,
border.
we need more. We see it's a work in progress.
Right.
For any, it's not us. You grow globally. The American wants to grow. It is not that the countries every country has its own aspirations. But it has to be bound by two things. One, your threat perception. And two, your money which you can spend on this.
Of course.
So India has realized that till we start making our own, we would continue to pay a price. I was reading this morning, Brazil is offered us India to buy the LCS and return. And they are saying the Brazilians barter system. I've never heard. Brazil has offered India the barter system that they'll buy LCS from India and in return give us C-390 Embrace medium transport aircraft in return because that's made by Brazil. So each day you hear something new, listen to something new. And it's a job continuously. So even after we get 40 squadrons, which we are hoping in next few years, we'll do appreciation and find that we still need more.
Sir, will we ever reach that number?
Yes, we will reach, but it is much delayed now.
So my next question would be when we talk about midlife. So do Russian aircraft, do they last longer as compared to the
Russian
Europeans?
aircraft are very sturdy.
Right.
The metallurgy which the Russians have
Which you mentioned.
is very robust.
Right.
So the Russians always believed in brute power, the Soviet era aeroplanes especially. But after disintegration of USSR in 1991, they have realized that somewhere the efficiency starts to matter because earlier platforms were fuel guzzlers. Like you will always find in a civil airline transportation which you travel, say by an Airbus or a Boeing aeroplane, the biggest expense for any airline is fuel.
Fuel, yes, sir.
But wherein the aeroplanes which the Russians manufacture, Tupolovs, Ilyushins,
Antelopes, yes.
the
Transport aircrafts.
they are not successful for commercial use. They have all phased out. For an example, an Airbus consumes about 3 tons of fuel per hour.
Okay.
Whereas an Ilyushin consumes about 9 tons per hour. Now, how do you sustain an airline which consumes at least 3 times more fuel for the same distance? But wherein your question of sturdiness and this thing, because the Russians believed in metallurgy and strength, brute strength. So their structures were more rugged and stronger and harder. Wherein the West believed that we should make lighter things. So the French like Mirage 2000 was the first aircraft like Airbus 320 which the French produced is fly-by-wire. So there is actually no transmission in any physical manner. Earlier, the conventional control.
Sir, I'd like you to throw some light on fly-by-wire so that people know.
See, fly-by-wire basically concept is that there is the stick with the pilot now, with which he controls everything.
Right.
So earlier it used to be physical movement. Then it came hydraulic assisted or pneumatic assisted, wherein the pilot had to just give a little feel. So the rudder or the ailerons at the back would move with the help of some pneumatic or hydraulic pressure.
Okay.
So they were called power assisted controls. First were manual controls, then were power assisted controls, then were totally assisted controls. Means you had to just give a feel and artificially it used to go. So it had an artificially feel embedded in the. So if you're going at higher speed, so artificially the pressure used to come on a stick to make you feel that like an actual aircraft that this is going at high speed. Actually, the computers and the machines.
Of course.
But now with fly-by-wire coming, with this, you have to just give a sensory input. So the wires will transmit the exact amount of current which is needed to move that surface for that particular speed, height, altitude, temperature. So this is broadly in simple language. So this came into commercial flying also. Nearly 35-40 years ago when Airbus 320s came. It was a revolutionary change. So there, what is happening in Europe, more so in Europe now, because somewhere the American aircraft industry stagnated last few years. But both Europe and America, there is a lot of stress given on research,
right?
R&D.
Right.
So they will catch hold of a particular problem. They will put best minds on it. They will work for years together and independently of the whole thing produce something which would be lighter, more compact, because basics of flying is that you want to carry least weight in the air. Now for again your viewers and this thing, why least weight? Because there is something called as drag. When you take any machine in the air, because of the airflow, wind resistance happens. So that's why you'll find all fighter aircrafts very sleek, with thin wings, aerofoil shaped, because it can take shock waves, speed of sound when you cross, can take Mach waves and other things. But basic ability is that you want stronger and lighter components. So more and more composites are coming into aircraft. Like today, the Vande Bharat train which you're getting, it's all made out of composites. So composites gives you the strength of a metal, but it is much lighter. Now, as the drag increases, as you go higher, because the old conventional Russian airplanes were heavy, consumed more fuel, so you have to carry more fuel. More fuel means more weight. More weight means more drag. More drag means more fuel consumption. Lightweight means less drag, means less fuel consumption. So you can go for longer distances or longer.
So typically, does Russian aircraft take more payload as compared to the Europeans?
It's not like that now.
Okay.
It's not like that. It is, we have hard points under a wing which can carry weight. It is all linked. Flying is nothing but managing four forces in air. That is lift, drag, weight and thrust.
Thrust, yes.
And this is managed around the center of gravity.
Okay.
For every movable thing, whether on ground or in the air, there is something called a center of gravity. So the weapons are loaded, the other equipment, your refueling is done in such a manner, even in your commercial aeroplane when you travel, baggage which is put in the aeroplanes, the fuel which is loaded, fuel is invariably carried in the wings of all the aeroplanes. So the fuel in the wings in a way help you to strengthen the wing. It has two roles. See, if you have if you have no fuel in the wings, you have, the wings will flap because the air pressure would be such. So what happens is when you put fuel in the wings, not only do they carry as a tank, it adds to the strength of the wing. So when you come in for landing, invariably after a long flight or this thing, your aircraft is very light and it is susceptible to wing flapping. So this is all aerodynamics and other things which we transgressed into. But it's wonderful people who are interested to know more about flying or how the machines fly how to this thing. There are a lot of videos on YouTube. There are a lot of things available which the young children, because I want more and more young people who will watch this podcast to be attracted towards this thing. When I was the commandant of the Air Force Academy, a lot of bright young children who used to come for flying, I used to ask them, how does an aeroplane fly? How does... Basic, he doesn't know anything. He's come from a college or has come from...
And these questions are important.
Important.
Yes.
What is your understanding as a layman? We will teach you, of course.
Of course.
But how does it fly? So these kind of questions which we just discussed, if it interests people at young age, I'm sure the answers are available.
So I'm going to take you back through your earlier flying days. What is the typical preparation for a flying officer that he has to go for a sortie? What is the typical preparation? Whatever you can share.
See, flying is a very tricky business.
Right. And particularly because of Top Gun, a lot of people have that interest. You know what it is.
No, it is very easy. When I was the commandant of NDA also,
right, sir.
We did a study there. We found out that the first choice for people to join NDA is Air Force.
Absolutely.
So about 72 to 75% people at an average opt and give the first choice as Air Force.
I would say Top Gun would be one of the major reasons.
So now what happens is, if you're given your choice as the Air Force and you have to go through certain extra things for selection to begin with. So there is a test called, it's called these days as CPSS. Computer based selection system. In our days, it was called PABT, Pilot Aptitude Test. It is conducted once in a lifetime. It basically sees that do you have a natural ability to become a pilot. It means you have to have hand-eye coordination. You should have ability to do multitasking. So I remember vaguely there was a screen. So there was a ball, you had to keep it in the center. Some light used to go on. So you, without removing that ball, you had to put that light off. Here, one switch, you had to put it on. So they are basically seeing your ability to be observant. And flying is nothing but use of your sensory organs and peripheral vision.
Right.
So human beings have, God has given a wonderful ability in peripheral vision.
Right.
And that is used in flying. Now, after doing medicals, the medicals are very stringent, very, very stringent.
Particularly for Air Force.
Yes, of course, we are talking about the Air Force.
Particularly for Air Force, yes.
You have to fit into that aircraft. Your leg length should be adequate. Your height should be adequate. You are into an ejection seat. When you pull the button, the head and this thing should not hit the canopy first. So all these parameters are, so a lot of people get grounded. Means they are okay otherwise, but and they are not suitable for leg length wise or seating height wise or other structures. After, when you come to Air Force Academy, you have to study 18 subjects. Now that is not known to very many people. It is very, very tough. That every gauge which is in the aeroplane, not only do you know what it does, they teach you how it works. So you have to know avionics, you have to know navigation, you have to know meteorology, you have to know air traffic services, you have to know about the hydraulic system, you have to know about the airframe system, you have to know about the ejection seat. And you have a thick book of checks and procedures. You have to mug it up. And you have a thick book of emergencies. What all can go wrong in the air. And all this you have to learn and go solo in 10 hours.
Okay.
So you just visualize a child coming. He has to go through a transformation.
Right.
He has to know everything about aerodynamics, about airframes, about engines, about structures, environment, meteorology. Because all these things, he is the only one in the aeroplane. So it is not that if anything is happening, he has somebody he can speak, of course, but he has to take actions himself. So the concept is that he has to know everything himself. So that is taught. Then he is taught flying with an instructor, and thereafter in the basic flying, he has to go solo in 10 hours of flying.
And I'm assuming you also have to memorize the maps of
everything. Maps now,
not
of course,
just your
our
country.
days, yes, when we were taught, things were analog. We used to sit the whole night. We were taught flying by seeing the ground features, which today we also there is road, railway line, lakes, cities, hills. So you fly seeing the map and the ground features that.
I'm just saying, so not just India. For example, we know what happened with Abhinandan. So he had to also memorize where he is, what is the topography.
The only thing which we all insist when we were taught flying and when we taught flying is very high situational awareness. And it is required in every aspect of life.
Of course.
Situational awareness.
Of course.
So where you are, what height you are, what speed you are, which direction are you going, which side is your runway, which side is territory where you can go, which side is the territory where you cannot go, how many aircrafts are flying with you, where are they in relation to you, are they high, low, below, sideways, formation, what are you carrying with you. This has to be, so you need a very clear mind, absolute clear mind. And that is a thing which we try to inculcate and bring into the people who come to learn flying, that you should be least distracted, absolute distraction. And I'm very happy to say that the young generation which is coming are very motivated, girls especially, who are coming to become pilots. I was fortunate, we did this paid work to induct the first batch of girl cadets at NDA.
Nice.
When they came in. They joined from June 22. So the passion, especially the young girls and young women, is so high to prove themselves.
Sir, a technical question. When it particularly comes to flying fighter aircraft, is a woman's body more better equipped than a man's body, or is it similar?
Training is one aspect
Right, sir.
makes up for everything. It is training, and training. And I always say the training, innovation and consistency. These are three words which I always tell everybody where I go. If you don't train, you will, you saw how Mike Tyson just came back. And the pictures before.
Despite the age.
But he trained.
Absolutely, sir.
He trained. He could not just walk into the ring without. So if you don't train at any level, you cannot, anybody, that machine doesn't understand your rank, that machine, the aeroplane it flies with the laws of physics.
Correct.
If you give the correct inputs, the machine will fly in that particular manner. You have to be absolutely alert. You have to absolutely be proficient in your checks, procedures and everything. That machine will fly. Now, as coming to the gravitational forces which you can pull, the physical ability is brought up by exercises, running. Because when you are flying against gravity, when you do aerobatics or maneuvers or this thing, the human body by design, by God's design, cannot take more than 4 to 5 G. So your blood starts to come from the head into the toes and you start to black out. And the vice versa is when you bunt or you go negative G, which you see in a giant wheel when you sit, that feeling of weightlessness. And so these things, we have the centrifuges machines which are put.
Right.
So they artificially give you that kind of a simulation. Today, the simulators are there, which you harness. And so what I was trying to tell you is you have to prepare. So that is a part of training, both physically, mentally, and practice.
Sir, in this movie, latest Top Gun, they particularly showed that Tom Cruise was able to manage 10G. Is it physically possible?
See, I don't know physically it's possible or not.
Because I don't think so. It can go beyond 5.
No, with the aid, with G suits and other things, human body can take about 7, 8.
Okay.
8. But
of course, they have to exaggerate. Right. Sir, I like to also understand what is the update as far as AMCA is concerned. Where are we as of now?
See, AMCA, as told you, the original plan is that we were to put F414 engines into that.
For Tejas.
And the work is going on.
Right, sir.
The work is going on at that advanced stage. Only that much I can tell you.
So, but I don't think so. The first squadron will come in the Indian Air Force before at least 10 years from now? Or
I cannot pinpoint a date and time at this stage, but it will take a few years for it to come online. But I told you, at the pain which you are going through, you have to go through. See, for every decision, you have to sacrifice something.
Yes.
So today we are sacrificing our squadron, number of squadron, the strength, to get the result of self-reliance. Because as a nation, we have realized that for how long can we depend on other countries?
Totally.
So it may take a little time. We started a little late, but hop, step, and jump is what we are hoping.
We can't talk about, we can't end before we talk about Pakistan Air Force as well. And a lot of times there is that, I don't know whether I should use the word myth or an urban legend, that Pakistan Air Force is just as professional as Indian Air Force. Is it actually the case?
They are a professional Air Force. Yes, of course. They are a professional Air Force. And they also train well.
Right.
They take pride in their uniform. They take pride in their country. They are equally motivated and potent force. Only thing is that somewhere I feel we have an edge in regards to our training.
Right.
In regards to our man behind the machine.
Absolutely, always.
And in regards to passion to evolve. They have also challenges like us.
Similar geography.
Similar mindset, similar geography, similar problems. They also are setting up their aviation infrastructure to manufacture and assemble things in their own country. They have huge factories which they have set up to assemble and produce their own aeroplanes. So they are also trying like us. So they are equally good, if I may say. But the last few years of our exercises and our interaction with about say 20 odd different air forces have made us work on certain tactics and make us work on certain procedures which are ever evolving. So it is in the end your training and man.
And what do you have to say about the Chinese Air Force?
See, there's a book, there's a word directory of modern aircraft, WDMA, you can Google it. It gives the rating of the world air forces globally. So I was just reading a few days ago, the top two in that are US Air Force and US Navy. The third is Russian Air Force. Fourth and fifth is US Army and US Marines. And sixth is India.
Sixth is India, yes.
And China is behind India in this world rank. And Pakistan is much lower, I think so. 18th or 14th. Now this takes into consideration everything. Your infrastructure, your training, your armaments, your compatibility, your ground support, your technicians, your overall facilities. Because war or this fighting is encompassing everything. Your refueling capabilities, your airborne early warning, AWACS, AWC, radars, missiles. It takes everything. And then they give this rating. It's an international agency. So they have rated us after US and Russia, the best Air Force.
But sir, China is purely playing by the numbers.
Yes.
So, and numbers has its own quality.
Yes.
And our Rafale may be able to take down their 5, 10 JF-17s, but if they have number which is 20 times more than us, how do we take that challenge?
Always plays on your mind when you're planning ratios of attack and defense and attack, whatsoever we plan. But somewhere I feel we would be able to overcome all this by our tactics, by our training, and the sheer process which is going on, it's an ongoing process. We will be able to handle all this situation. But we have to be absolutely alert and vigilant to come up to that required standard at the earliest.
Right. And so what do you have to say about their 6th generation aircraft?
See, they are working on it. The work is going on. They exhibited the last this thing. Like some of our colleagues who had gone to see the Zoi Air Show a few years ago, they had kept in one corner the 5th generation. So nobody was allowed. Yes, sir. Then next air show, they brought it a little closer. You could see it from nearby. Then the next air show, you could take a picture in front of it. Then another air show, they flew it. But now I don't know whether they'll be able to export or not. But sixth generation, they have just shown a picture now.
So, I mean, if we were to take an educated guess, the sixth generation is what, 10 years from now in the flying condition for them?
Maybe less.
Maybe less. And that is a challenge.
That is a challenge. So what I'm saying is technologically we are way behind because we didn't invest in R&D in our country.
They've been investing for a very long time.
So they started 20 years ago, 25 years ago, be it shipbuilding, be it aircraft carriers, be it designing their guns, weapons, missiles, space. See where they are the best today in the world in quantum, the best in artificial intelligence, the best in machine learning today in the world. They have overtaken.
Yes.
So they have invested
Electric cars. Yeah, absolutely.
I was watching the Baidu's car the other day.
Yes.
It's another level. The Chinese have heavily invested on technology.
I think if you were to particularly talk about electric cars, the main reason why they have been able to do it is because the engine is no longer required, which was a forte for Europeans because they have been...
Elon Musk has yesterday sent a water engine photo. So he says, we don't need fuel now.
Right.
The engine will work on water.
Right.
So I don't know where this world is going. I don't know where it will take us. We may see these things in our lifespan.
And sir, what are you doing these days? Are you still actively involved with the Indian Air Force operation level? Anything that you can share?
Yeah, I basically write articles. I go and give talks at various schools, colleges, educational institutions, because I feel now is the time to share what you have learned.
Right, sir.
I read, I write, play golf, go for a run, do cycling. I keep myself busy.
All right, sir. Thank you so much for your time. It was really, really nice to talk to you.
Thank you.
That was Air Marshal Sanjeev Kapoor, sir. It was really nice talking to him. And if you really liked to hear from him, and if you would want more podcasts, more stories around national security and geopolitics, please, I would request you to hit the subscribe button, press the notification, and we would love to hear from you. Thank you very much.